Hi, thank you everybody for attending the Urban Agriculture Conference virtually this year and for being brave enough to come to an insurance presentation because everyone knows that's not the fun in the world. This is me, since I can't be there in person. I'm actually in pajamas right now. Um, but yeah, to introduce myself, I'm Katie Luckini. I am a commercial and farm insurance agent up in the Morgantown, West Virginia area. Um, but I do work all over the state. I drive out to farms all over the place, Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia. Um, I work at a company called the Davis Insurance Group. We are a independent agency. We work with lots of different businesses. So please feel free to reach out with me to me with any questions, regardless of who your insurance is with. Um, Currently, I'm president of the West Virginia Agri-Women, so I'll just hype that if any of you lady farmers are looking for a cool group where you can socialize and network with other lady farmers all over the state. We have a cool podcast and we do farm tours and lots of great educational and informative opportunities. Um, so why are we here? We're going to talk about insurance and farming. The long and the short of it is that everything you do on a farm is dangerous. It has risk involved, and you do it with a lot of expensive things, tractors, equipment, animals, livestock, uh, and you have a lot of exposure to risk. So when you grow something and you give it to someone to eat, you're opening yourself up to all sorts of opportunities for lawsuits, for risks, for exposures. Whenever someone comes onto your land, they come to your house to buy something at a farm stand, to do, pick pumpkins or ride a hayride. Those are all risky things. Um, yes, my background is academic philosophy, so I like to start with first principles. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about how do we take all those risks and exposures you have and spread them out. So we take them from one individual you, and we don't want you to actually literally lose the farm if something bad happens. We want to spread that out amongst the whole pool of people so that everyone can absorb that better than one person. So we use insurance to protect your assets. It transfers that risk to a bigger pool of people and not just you. Um, it can give you protection against lawsuits. It can protect your actual property and value of your assets, and it can give you some assets in case their medical attention is needed, that sort of thing. So the question today is whether you need a farm policy or whether your homeowner's policy is enough. Um, and the answer is it depends, which I'm going to say a lot today. Um, Most homeowners policies will include some farming coverages, but you really need to know what's in your policy. So you need to talk to your agent. Um, there are some hard stops and some soft stops. This is my sort of cheat sheet, just things to look out for to kind of get you thinking, oh, maybe it's time that I need to move. Um, but the central concern is, are your risks commercial in nature or are they personal in nature? So if you start selling things, you have product liability. Um, that's a big hint. If you're going to farmers markets and selling things, if you have a farm stand, if you have income, you probably need some kind of commercial insurance. Um, Livestock is another one to watch out for. Some homeowners policies are okay with one or two large animals, but maybe not three or maybe not four. Um, if your goat or your horse gets out in the road and causes a car accident, is your homeowner's insurance going to cover that? That's a question you really need to know the answer to if you're going to have livestock on your property. And and you just need to know what's on your policy. So you need to call your agent and find out. Some policies exclude horses, even if they're just for personal use. So just things to be aware of. When you start to hire staff, so as soon as you have employees, you have commercial exposures. And it may not mean you need to buy workers' compensation, but it might. There are a few loopholes for farmers, but definitely be aware that you have new commercial exposures when you hire staff. Acreage can be a concern for homeowners. Some policies have a cutoff. They don't like 100 acres on a homeowner's policy, so you might want to check on that. And then when you start to have structures, buildings, facilities that are specific to your business. So if you have a milking parlor outside for your creamery, or if you have a commercial kitchen, even if it's in your home, that's where you're baking pies for the farmer's market, those might be things that are better suited to a business policy. You really just don't want to get into a situation where you have a claim denied because, say, the fire started in your commercial kitchen where you're baking pies for the market, and your homeowner's insurance comes back and says, we weren't insuring you for that. We were just insuring you for cooking for your family. We didn't anticipate that kind of volume. So just more things to be aware of. That's my cheat sheet. Yeah, let's see. So mostly we all know what a homeowner's policy covers, right? It covers the structure of your house, your contents, your possessions inside, maybe a tool shed outside or a detached garage, gives you some liability coverage. And that might be plenty for what you're doing. But I want to tell you about farm policies so you know what is involved. Farm policies are different. Homeowners tend to be pretty cookie cutter. You kind of know exactly what you're getting every time. But a farm policy is a package, which means it is built up of all the different components you need that are specific to your business and your operation. So it's more involved. It's more of a process. Expect to talk to me or some insurance agent a little more than you did to get your homeowners. And they're going to ask you a lot of tedious questions. These are the general categories. There are many more that we can add, but as an overview, farm policy will include all of these things. Your home, so it's a mix of personal and commercial coverages. So it replaces your homeowner's policy. So your residence and its contents. And then it's not uncommon for farmers to have several residences. Maybe there's a mobile home on the back 40 they rent to somebody. Maybe there's a hunting cabin. Maybe there's other properties adjacent or down the road they own that might have a home they rent out. You can put all of that on a farm policy. Other structures, so these are your barns, your compost, your manure shed, your silos, milking parlors, anything, any other building on your property that you use for the farm or for personal use, you can put on a farm policy. And your equipment and your farm property, so these are all your odds and ends, your hand tools, your fencing, your feed, your hay, and then your tractors and your combines. You can itemize those right as part of the farm policy. ATVs don't require a separate policy if you're using them for the farm. If you have a four-wheeler and you use it to check the fence lines, that's farm property. That liability and that property can go right on the farm policy. And then your livestock, both the liability for your livestock and the value can be put right on a farm policy. And then your liability coverage. So both for the farm operations and your personal liability, that is both lumped in on a farm policy. Farm vehicles, even if a personal pickup truck and you're using it to haul cattle or haul a horse trailer, that might be a better fit for a farm policy than a personal policy, and much, much more. Like I said, you build it up. Yeah, so I just grabbed a few articles here about so the sorts of big losses you can have on a farm. 21 cows, if they're all worth, a couple $1,000s to you, that can be a really big loss. And again, not something you could put on a homeowner's policy. Just another article I grabbed. This is a good example of the way a loss on a farm um, is different than just a business or just a home loss. So it's really beneficial when you have a big loss because it can affect both areas. Um, so we know some of the things farm policy can cover. The next question is, when does it cover those things? We all know somebody who's had something happen and then they say, well, my insurance company said they don't cover for that. So this is a little more tedious section of my presentation, but I think these terms are important to know to help you, navigate your insurance policy and know what you've actually got. It actually gives you a little bit of freedom with the price as well. You can kind of negotiate, well, I need this much coverage here, but I don't really need it all over here, so I'll save a little money there. And so when you see basic coverage on something on your farm policy, it is what it says. It's the most basic level of coverage, and it covers this list of things. So this is not a very long list. It's not the kind of coverage you want on your home, but it might be the kind of coverage you would like on an outbuilding that you really only want covered in case it burns to the ground. So you're covered for your big things, your big booms, your fire, lightning, windstorm, explosion, your big booms, and coal volcanic activity. So there are a lot of things that aren't covered there. Broad is your next stage. You occasionally see this on a house, but not often. This is pretty common on your barns, that sort of thing. It includes everything from the basic list, and then it adds burglary break-in, falling objects, weight of ice and snow, freezing plumbing, water damage, electric. The big thing it adds is that collapse coverage. So if you live somewhere like West Virginia where you do get a lot of snow accumulation, especially on high elevations, then maybe you don't want basic on a structure because you're not going to be covered if it collapses under the weight of snow. Special is the most inclusive, and instead of listing what it does cover, it covers everything that is not specifically excluded. So you want to look at your policy and talk to your agent because every company will have its own forms and its own language. But in general, these are the kinds of things that are excluded from special coverage. So you're covered for everything except floods, earthquakes, and that's important because no one is covered for floods unless you've specifically purchased flood insurance. It's a common gap that people miss. War, neglect. You cannot neglect your property into destruction and have it covered, unfortunately. Nuclear hazard, intentional acts. And you will find almost every policy will have, since we're in the corona days now, most policies will have an exclusion for epidemics or disease. So that's a kind of an exciting world for insurance agents now, is watching people trying to negotiate whether they can get income replacement during coronavirus, because a lot of people there's an exclusion for epidemics and disease. So those are your basic coverages and the basic levels of coverage you can get on the different things you can cover. But these are some other components you might need to build into your farm policy. So just so you're aware of those, commercial vehicles can often be a part of a farming operation. Anything up to like a full tractor trailer or tanker truck that's taking milk to market. I've seen those go on farm policies. Custom farming, if you are borrowing equipment or renting equipment, um, occasionally or frequently, that might be a coverage you want to be sure you have. You would hate to borrow an expensive tractor from the guy down the road and have it be destroyed on your property and not be able to pay him back. Workers' comp, once you have employees in West Virginia, you're required to have some comp. I think up to 4 employees on a farm, you can get away with not having it. In West Virginia, that does differ from place to place. And in that case, there are endorsements you can add to a farm policy that will kind of fill that gap for you. They're not as thorough as workers' comp, but they are there, and it can be a good stopgap. Um, Product liability. That is one I often need to point out to farmers. If you are doing anything to your goods before you sell them, sometimes you need an additional form of liability to cover that. So if you are raising sheep and you are selling them wholesale or on the hoof, that's not a product liability situation. But as soon as you have that meat butchered and packaged and you take it frozen to the farmer's market, that's a processed good, and your general liability won't cover that. You need product liability. Things like making apple butter is very different than just selling the raw produce at the market. Again, product liability. Umbrellas, you'll sometimes hear mentioned if it's a fairly cheap way to add excess liability coverage on top of policies you already have. Let's see, inland marine is pertinent to equipment. If you have equipment you're moving around a lot, that might be a good fit. And then flood insurance and crop insurance are two things that are never included, and you really have to go seek out if you want them. So I want to make sure I note those. They're there, but you have to go get them. With extras you can add on. But before I end, I definitely want to hit on this. Farmers and contractors are the people I work with the most, and they are notorious for taking themselves for granted. So please remember that you are your family's most important asset. Your income is the most valuable thing that you offer many times. And if your farm is your business, then you are your business's most important asset. So do think about what would happen if you threw your back out, or if you were injured, or you got an unexpected diagnosis and you had to take some time away from work for treatment. Disability insurance is there. It can protect your income. If you would like to leave your farm to your children, if you are worried about how your family would pay off the house if you couldn't come home tomorrow, life insurance can be an important it can be an important piece of solving that problem. And then long-term care, if you find yourself in a situation where your savings or your kids' inheritance might get eaten up by long-term hospital bills, these are things you can protect against. You can build these products into your business model, and you can plan for them. So I just like to mention those at the end. Don't forget to think about yourself and how you can protect your value to your business. Don't just think about your machinery and your buildings and your property. So wrapping up here, I know I've rambled on for almost 20 minutes already. These are some things to think about as you go forward and insure your home or your business. Be safe, be safe, safe, safe. Having a formal written safety plan is one of the best things you can do. If you hire people and you have something in writing you can use to train them, always use your PPE, have people sign waivers, and never underestimate the value of putting signs up about where people can and shouldn't go, what they should and shouldn't touch on your farm. These not only prevent accidents, but they let your friendly neighborhood insurance agent take pictures and go to my underwriters and say, let's give this guy a discount. He's really, really doing the work to keep things safe. So it can benefit you in several ways. The second takeaway is that liability coverage is not the expensive part of insurance, so don't skimp on it. Lawsuits can be outrageous, and they can go way higher than you think they will. So you may only have $100,000 or $300,000 liability on your homeowner's policy. Don't get sticker shock if someone says, go ahead and get $1 million on your farm policy. That's not outrageous. and it's worth it. You'll never have too much. Find an agent you can trust and who will listen to you ask all your questions. Farming is very personal, and everyone's operation is unique, and your agent really needs to understand what you're doing so that they can get you a policy that fits your situation and covers you for everything that you need. So take that time, find someone who will take that time with you. Finally, feel free to call me, email me with questions. This is my cell phone, that is my email. I am happy to just be a resource. I am not going to try and sell you something unless I think you need it. But thank you again for coming today virtually, and let's all go to Urban Ag next year because it's all